Hello everybody and welcome to another Beyond a Reason video. Today we are watching Xfactor versus Wraxell, Darth, otherwise known as Xfactor. Playing Cortex today against Wraxell, also playing Cortex. Now, this map is Pools of Ilys. If you haven't seen it before, to be honest, it's one of my favorite 1v1 maps, just due to the diversity that it offers. Basically, it's a 3-lane map with a lane being here, here, and here. However, it doesn't necessarily play like that. There's a area, it's hard to draw it on the map because of the way that the drawing works, but there's a path through the water here on both sides, so players can use that if they deem to. Don't often actually see it used just due to the depth of this water. It's really, really deep, so amphibious units take quite a while to get through there. There's several geos there, and obviously the ones at the top. Generally, we only see these ones that are close to the base get taken. The other three are kind of left, especially the one in the center, which you would think would be grand for a Cerberus, but it doesn't often actually get done. Now, choice of start positions here is quite important because Wraxell here has decided to go for a very, very forward start position. This is going to mean that he has quite a long distance for expansion. We can see on the mini-map, and actually as we look over, Xfactor has already started his first expansion mechs, whereas the builders of Wraxell have a long way to go before they even reach that. And so Wraxell is going to be slower on the initial economy expansion, but his base position does apply a lot of pressure to the center and also makes it harder to raid the back area because of the amount of pressure you're applying to the center. So it should, in theory, mean that Wraxell can hold kind of where that line is. If he holds where that line is, I'm expecting a line to be drawn there, and then normally a line that's drawn there would give him more of the map than Xfactor. If that plays off, Wraxell should have a higher economy, and then with that should be able to win. The problem is he needs to keep the pressure on, keep Xfactor contained as much as he can, because if Xfactor breaks through on one of these sides, let's say he forces Wraxell back to here, this will be harder to defend, you know, because you can run that way, you can run that way, you can run through the middle, meaning you're going to have to invest more over here to defend this, as opposed to this, you know, small choke point. But yeah, we'll see, I guess. Xfactor starting off with the pretty standard start position. Double mechs into the triple mechs at the bottom. Single LRT up here just to stop scout spam coming through. I think if it's a tick, it can still technically get through that gap there, but not easily. Wraxell is losing pressure in the middle already, though. He is doing okay. He's got 3 grunts there versus 4. There is more grunts on their way. This grunt is just staying just out of range of Xfactor's commander, just to give Wraxell that vision constantly. Both players seem to have started pretty much only energy production. Wins rather. Wraxell is building a solar now, but it's unfortunate timing for Xfactor as he's going into a con turret whilst energy is at its lowest point. Now, currently numbers are in the red. Metal produced, energy a second, army value. Metal produced total, though, is currently advantage Xfactor, although not by much. We're talking probably 1,000, if that. Just shows that Wraxell has invested more into military. There are a few dead carcasses around, which add up to about 100 metal, so it's not really that much to write home about. But so far, Wraxell in a good, strong position at the bottom. He's held this position. He outweighs his opponent's units for now. He does need to be careful he doesn't lose all of these units down here, which he might be about to do. No, does a good job managing to clear out the defensive forces there. Still applying enough pressure in the center. Now, Xfactor does have to make the choice now. He's split enough forces to defend bottom, which does technically give Wraxell advantage in the center to apply a push if he chooses to. However, he is not. Oh, but Wraxell's mispositioning of his units there forces a win for Xfactor. Keeping an eye on what's going on here, but he loses all of his forces at the bottom. He does attempt a run by Wraxell. Getting a metal extractor. We'll try and get the constructor. This is the expanding constructor here. Just before they get sandwiched. Yep, he does get the constructor. Loses all the units at the same time. Pretty strong push. Wipes out the remaining forces there of Wraxell. So what actually happened here was Wraxell had his units out in a big line. And obviously that's normally what you want to do to avoid splash damage. But what Xfactor actually did was he grouped up all his forces into kind of like a V shape here, and then pushed this in. That meant that all of the units on this side of the line wasn't actually in range, and Xfactor actually had more damage, so was able to take out this group here quicker, then force his way down the line. And Wraxell actually broke off these units on the top side of the line to go up the top. But that just shows the strength of the micro there. You may be outnumbered, or more like, yeah, outnumbered. But if you use your forces effectively, you can win. Like the same Wraxell could do here. The way that these forces are grouped up, if Wraxell moved around to this side and attacked, these guys over this side wouldn't be able to attack. So it would then be a, 8v4, which is a lot more favorable, of course. That's presuming your opponent doesn't react. Both of those attacks there, Wraxell didn't react in time, and that's what caused him to lose his units. Both players now, though, transitioning over to vehicles. And pretty much straight up pounders coming out from Xfactor here. A expansion con of Xfactor does get taken out, leaving pretty much no expansion cons at all. One was res down the bottom, and a second one is off there to join it. One advantage of being bots is, of course, res bots. Xfactor is getting all of the reclaim, all the reclaim so far. Wraxell is applying a lot of pressure here. He did lose the bottom side though. He hasn't pushed up much on the north side to counter that. He also hasn't claimed the metal extractors back here. So even though he has this forward position so far, he isn't really making use of these metal extractors that he actually has. And he now kind of really can't go in because the amount of pounders here will just make really short work of this army. Oh, but he is going in. Interesting. Pounders obviously counter raider units like incisors and grunts. And I mean, his plan was to just surround the enemy. But with the amount of pounders here, he clearly wasn't expecting Xfactor to have this many pounders. And the entire army Wraxell had, which was quite big, has been completely annihilated by these pounders. Now he is trying to rush to get the reclaim here, but ain't gonna help, as this reclaim field will now go to Xfactor. 800 metal was there for a brief second, now 900. So a lot of metal lost, and he is still just producing raider units, which are gonna get slaughtered by the pounders. Finally changing his plan here, going for the good old Fug and some brutes. He also has an air factory here already, so he's got a lot of factories. Meanwhile, though, Xfactor is using all this metal to transition himself to Tech 2, make the most of the reclaim that he has available to him, and just sit back. Interestingly, I don't know if you've noticed that about Xfactor so far, is he's not really been aggressive whatsoever. He could have been aggressive along the bottom, chose not to because he could have quite easily gone around there. He is just ecoing. He's sitting back and just ecoing. That's all he's doing, which so far has worked well. He's lost some fights, yeah, but he hasn't lost any eco really. And he's just getting all the reclaim. His stalwart defense. Also, this attack on the north side, Wraxell just sending individual units in at a time rather than one overwhelming force. And this field of LLTs, this forest, is just enough to stop that raiding units making them move. Bombers, though, now attempting to go in. With no scout support, though. And that first bomber literally hits nothing. Energy converters do go down, but they weren't actively being used, so it's not, again, that big a hit. Managing to get 4 wins. And this will be the last bombing run. Less than 10 wins, really, destroyed in that run for 3 bombers was not worth it at all. Big tank push, though. If Wraxell manages to continue this push before the Pounders get into position, this could be dangerous. Wraxell taking a second, though, and that second is literally enough for these Pounders to move in. And Wraxell just grouping up these tanks, letting all of the splash damage from the Pounders do the job. And this tank force just got absolutely annihilated. Some could say that maybe Pounders are a bit overtuned at the moment, but 2 Pounders dead for all of that. Yeah, that did not go how Wraxell intended. At the slightest. At the same time as Zara has now made its way onto the field. Wraxell is attempting to just find some value wherever he can. Does manage to get a single metal extractor. He is also aware of his opponent is Tech 2 by seeing this Tech 2 constructor. And the Zara hitting him from behind. He did try an attack here with these units at the front here to try and take out these defenses, but he managed to get a single metal extractor, and that's it. There is a con there that will go down as well, but these forces and that Tsar could just push through the bottom now and cause a lot of problems. And although Wraxell was in a pretty strong spot, he is starting to falter. As we select the commander here, we can see that 2,600 metal is now sat directly outside of Xfactor's base, and he is ready to use it. With 2,000 metal already in the bank, all he needs is the energy to use it. One would argue that that bombing run did set Xfactor back a little bit. Okay, maybe it was about 10 wins, but still not a lot. It's more the fact that he's transitioned to Tech 2, and building these Tech 2 metal extractors uses a lot of energy. Even running them uses 20 each, so that's like 1 solar per, you know, metal extractor, or 2 wins per metal extractor. But it won't take him long to get that up and running. He's eating all the crystals here, which will provide him some temporary energy. Meanwhile, over in Wraxell's base, he has eaten up all of his thugs here in an effort to try and get him some metal in order to get his economy up and running. He's doing pretty well when it comes to energy production. Interestingly enough, you actually see all of the economy metrics are advantage Wraxell right now. metal produced, we're talking only about 3k difference, but saying that 3k, there's 2.5k right here. So realistically, once this reclaim is gathered, they're basically neck for neck for metal produced. But all of Wraxell's attacks have not gone favorably whatsoever. He's continued trying to push in the same direction rather than, you know, spreading out his forces, take a bit of damage over here. Maybe you can cause some problems. He did try and attack the bottom, but it's not like he sent any substantial forces down here. But this is quite common in pools. You see both players pretty much ignore the two side lanes and focus pretty much entirely on the center of the map. Now, the very first Tsar is making its way up to the front line. Wraxell doesn't really have much here. But in come the shurikens. Xfactor has no AA with the army at all. Well, he did. He had 2 missile trucks, but they got EMP'd instantly. And I was about to say this would be tremendous value if these thugs killed that. But friendly fire managed to pretty much kill all the thugs. The Tsar does go down, but the shurikens are now no longer valuable as, you know, the fighters make their way in. And air transport was also coming in, so we could have gone for a hijack shenanigans, but it doesn't matter now anyway, as it's dead. Now, meanwhile, at the bottom of the map, we see a decent chunk of force here for Xfactor. There's not much really here defending the bottom for Wraxell. He hasn't reinforced this position in a long time. This is quite easily enough to push through. Does Xfactor even know that? No, he doesn't have radar down there at all. Probably going to wait for this to move. Now, Xfactor does have a lot of build power here. 4 Tech 1 cons and a single Tech 2 will be a decent amount of build power. But when you look at Wraxell here, he only has a single con expanding. He does have more up here, but the expansion con has got nothing. And that southern flank is destroyed entirely. Northern flank is... the northern flank is where all of his expansion build power is. Okay, that's fair enough. Energy, though, is a problem for Wraxell right now. He is trying to counter that with the solars. There are plenty of, you know, crystals he could eat up. Army value is starting to look a little bit tenuous for Wraxell, though. Economy-wise, energy a second. Xfactor is now ahead. You see he's kind of overbuilding energy converters, as he is still not able to use all of them right now, but he is getting close. Literally as I finish talking, he does. So currently producing at an extra 14 metal so far, and that number's going up with these energy converters that he's building. He is just scaling his economy more and more. There's another batch down here. Whereas Wraxell has kind of stagnated. He's building Tech 2 economy from his metal extractors, but he's not really scaling his energy production at all. He's got one constructor over here building some winds, but that's about it. And I think this is maybe where we see the downfall of Wraxell here. He was in a very strong position at the beginning of the match, but his inability to keep up with the scale of Xfactor may be his shortcoming. Xfactor has no real need to produce any significant quantity of units. He does have 2 Tsars going to the south, some Salamanders going south as well. In the center, he's just massing grunts. But his opponent, however, Wraxell over here, has 2 Tsars, about to be a 3rd one that he's resurrecting. Coming out of his base, he has 2 more, with an extra one being built. Pure Tsar gaming from Wraxell here. Now, Tsars are great and all, but I don't know if this is necessarily the right play because they are so expensive. Surely something to deal with this would be a great idea. But at the moment, nothing. And we've kind of gone into a bit of a stalemate where no one's really doing anything. Oh, Tsar set on fight move. Maybe let's see Wraxell start to do some damage. Wraxell sat on 8k of metal though right now. Unable to use all the metal. Still is only just ahead of metal produced. Here come the air scouts come over and so many Tsars. The shurikens that he did have got killed pretty quickly. First Tsar is, yep, goes down. But Xfactor falls back. Probably wasn't expecting quite so many Tsars. At the same time, we see Tsar versus Tsar and other stuff at the bottom. Gets the Tech 2 Constructor, but little does he know there's an extra one behind, and a Cerberus is about 50 seconds away from completion. It looks like he was trying to focus the Cerberus down, with it being at 30% health. Salamander comes in, but with an armed exploiter behind and Tech 2 defenses, makes it very, very short work of the Salamanders. Grunts get right up on top of the Tsars, causing lots of friendly fire. Banishers are also there, also very heavy on the friendly fire. This Tsar here took more damage from friendly fire than I think he took from enemy fire. But still, Wraxell has, 4 Tsars to Xfactor's 3. There's a bunch of Tigers in that mix as well. That impulse just like partially stun locking Xfactor's units. The mix of banishers there also causing some problems. There's a lot of very, very low health units though that literally just need to be breathed on and they're dead. But he is getting all of the reclaim field. Plenty of resbots in the background there, you see. Doing their job. Oh, that's our shot. Just hitting like 5 things at a time. Wraxell trying to continue pushing on the initiative here. But this high ground will cause him some problems. Oh my god, he's just got this Tsar flying in the air here. All it would take is like a single single fighter, a few shots, and that's a dead Tsar for free. Please land it. Thank you. But yeah, Wraxell getting all of the reclaim, or more like all the res. 4.9k. He could really do with a radar jammer as he just keeps moving forces onto this hill and taking huge amount of splash. And that did not go as he intended. Now he does have a lot of units, but look, 5%, 8%, 17% health. That's not really enough to hold off. Now, Xfactor is just spamming grunts at him in an effort to kind of hold him back. That's because he's going tech free and trying a bomber push as well. See how well that pays off for him. Now, if he did have radar jammer, it may make a difference here. That hill is still a problem. Both players really need vision, and they don't have much of it right now. A good fighter attack there by Wraxell. He actually positioned his air force kind of like this. And then Xfactor just ended up flying straight into it and got hit a lot, losing all of his fighters there. And the bombers now having to fall right back. Wraxell is chasing them down though. Clearly doesn't want to have to deal with a threat later. Just look how many bombers have already landed. And fighters do not do well at shooting ground targets. And with all of the build turrets here as well, able to keep most of those, well, all of those bombers alive. But did Wraxell gain vision there of Tech 3? He did, so he will have got Tech 3 units detected. Not only that, got a bit of vision of the base. Anti-nuke already built. 2 fusions up as well. And Wraxell is only on a single fusion. You can see him now desperately reclaiming everything. He has now accessed 1k worth of metal. And a desperate attempt here to try and get enough room to build the Tech 3 factory. 2k metal now. $2.7. 3k. Why can't you place that factory? Is the mat extractor maybe? No. In the end, Wraxell wasting 4k metal there. Just waiting to place the Tech 3 factory is a huge amount of metal to waste. That is the equivalent of, you know, 1 catapult worth of metal. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that is quite a lot of metal to just waste. And in that time, we can see that the metal numbers do not lie. The scaling of Xfactor's economy has dwarfed the economy of Wraxell. 25% advantage on metal produced. That number is just continuously going up. Energy a second is a nice number of 69% advantage to Xfactor currently. Build power as well, important. Mech trick is obviously 25% more as well. Metal produced, Xfactor has now overtaken Wraxell in metal produced, and on top of that, with the waste of 4k metal as well, that puts Wraxell even further behind. And this Shiva push here is probably not doing as much as Xfactor hoped. There are a lot of Zars, and the damage that these Zars do is nothing to be sniffed at, and Xfactor does have a lot of them grouped up quite close, so the splash damage is doing quite a bit. As we can see, both of these 2 Shivas here taking a lot of damage from Zars. Still holding on. Oh, a amphibious attack is attempted as well, but too much defense to write home there any damage. Surprisingly, no scout spam from either player. Here come the bombers over in the center, but that's so much flak there that they're not going to be able to do anything. They do not even get through towards the base. They die instantly. And Xfactor forced back into a defensive position. Now, there are no resbots left right now, but Wraxell is building them, and there is 15k metal. Is that enough to bring him back into the running? Who knows? But Zars have done their job, have held the ground. But look at the Conga line. Oh, I have a feeling that Xfactor might have accidentally trapped in a bunch of Shivas, because there's no way he could have had this many just sat there. But just look at the scaling. We have Xfactor currently on 4 fusions. We quickly switch over here. Wraxell still on 1. 128% energy a second difference. Xfactor is on 10k metal a second. And Wraxell's only on 4. So this basically starts a ticking clock now. Xfactor is already ahead. in terms of economy. Army value though is kind of only just advantage Wraxell. Wraxell now has a finite amount of time to push into Xfactor and take him out. If he waits too long, the economy of Xfactor will grow to the point where he cannot keep up, and this reclaim will help Wraxell keep up, or at least catch up, if he puts it into economy, all of this metal. But I don't think that's where it's going. I think it's all going to units, which is why we see army value now skyrocketing to 12% from what it was a minute ago. 15k is a lot of Shivas. But addition to the unit comp of Xfactor, we see here a catapult. And this unit will do wonders against units that are just standing there doing nothing. And this will slowly whittle down these Shivas if it's just left to its own devices, and if Wraxell just keeps his units where they are. We are seeing scout spam, but not as you expect it. There's actually a constant stream of air scouts coming out from Xfactor here, just straight over the middle, providing vision. And you can just see the amount of vision that's providing. It's quite a lot, and that's going to help these catapults hit targets. The delay is causing him not to be able to use set target. He has just used it there. As you see, set target on the Shivas. And this catapult will now just keep hitting those Shivas rather than the grunt spam that's getting in the way. And it is doing enough to damage the Shivas over time before they're able to actually do anything. 3 Shivas are now already dead. 4 Shivas, sorry. Before they even reach the front line. 5, 6 Shivas. All of these Shivas on this left-hand side pretty much destroyed before they even engage the other Shivas of Xfactor here. And Catapult's just really making a good use of them, at least. Now, what could have happened is, rather than doing all that, he could have kept a force here and pushed the other force round. That would have forced Xfactor to either all in on one army or split his army in the fence. Unfortunately, there's no pressure now to be had in the center from Wraxell, and because of that, it doesn't really matter how Xfactor reacts to this, because he could just do whatever he wants. Now, there is a flak left here with these guys, but he is trying to keep it alive. Well, flak's dead, and with a dead flak means hello shurikens. And these guys will not be able to inflict any major damage really at all, as they just get shuriken up. Meanwhile, in the center, how much reclaim is there now? 22k. And that is all going into Xfactor's bank. Xfactor currently running out of space, if anything, on 6 fusions. Meanwhile, Wraxell is on his second. And Metal a second is a bit skewed because of all of the reclaim that's being eaten at the moment. But just look at metal produced. We're seeing a huge difference between the players. There's some lovely explosions though. This game does have very nice explosions. I do find it interesting that Xfactor is unwilling to commit. He's got a huge economy advantage here. His army value is advantage here. He has pretty much everything, yet he is choosing to not commit. He is the #1 player in bar for 1v1s, so he's choosing to not commit because he doesn't want to risk it. He doesn't want to risk giving the opponent the economy, the reclaim. So he's happy to just sit there and do nothing until he knows 100% that he has won. And you can just see the catapults doing tremendous work at just whittling down the very few remaining Shivas that Wraxell has. He doesn't need to push in. The Shivas of his own are basically there to protect the catapults, while the catapults slowly whittle down the defenses of Wraxell. Just waiting for him to build this critical mass. But what can Wraxell do? Well, it's difficult for Wraxell. He kind of needs all of his forces in the center, so he can't really afford to send stuff elsewhere. But if he could, I mean, this is pretty heavily defended. We've got 4 pop-up, 5. There's one somewhere else. Oh, yeah, the one up there. 4 pop-up defenses and a Cerberus, and plenty of double LOTs. And armed exploiter. It's going to be difficult to push into that. Along the top, we see plenty of pop-up scorpions as well. They're going to be difficult to push into, and it pretty much kind of doesn't make it easy to go anywhere. But him fighting in the middle is not working. Maybe splitting some of these guys off to go through the water might be the play. But being so close to the factory of Xfactor, he could probably reroute units pretty effectively to deal with that. There is an attempt at a Cerberus being built, but that isn't going to really do too much. The catapults will probably kill that before it even gets built. Offensive line being actually where the Shivas, the Cerberus is being built is not gonna bode well, really. And you see this left flank is just slowly getting whittled down. We lost 5 Shivas here before he's even reacted. Getting forced back even further, and all the reclaim again just going straight into Xfactor. He's basically just moving up here to get reclaim, covering the resbots. What Wraxell wants to do is kind of go in, fire a shot, back off, but he doesn't have jammers here, so the units will just fire on him as soon as they get close. So many missiles. Wraxell being forced further and further back. It's only so far back you can go. And the longer this goes on, the worse it's getting for him, as he just needs to keep going further and further out of the Cerberus range. Meanwhile, he is trying to make an attempt here. He's sending a Kraganath. Unfortunately, the route he's taken it will not be able to get any value. If he instead had gone around the inside, maybe over there, and round the inside, out of the way of any sort of defense, then maybe it could have got some damage. But it going over this hill here, he's just going to get killed by the all the defenses that are there. Beautiful sight of explosions. Xfactor now, you don't need me to tell you, but very, very far ahead. Almost 100k metal, well 80k metal difference between the 2 players. And if Wraxell loses this high ground here, it's game over. The catapults will be in range of the base. But I don't see Wraxell having an ability here to come back. He attempts a bombing run, but with Xfactor having Tech 1 and Tech 2 air, it's going to be impossible for that air to get anywhere. Losing full control of air means no shurikens to deal with the force in the middle, meaning stuck with a land response, and no land response will be enough to get through the economy advantage that Xfactor has right now. And to be fair, Xfactor played the game. He played it that way. He sat being defensive. He let Wraxell feed him metal on battlefields that right outside the base. He let him eco up. And Wraxell was not aggressive enough. Also, the inability to mix up his unit comp here for Tech 3 has really cost him quite a lot. Not even adding a single catapult into his army comp here has really caused him a lot of hardship. And due to that, he will lose. I think it's just a matter of time before he calls GG, to be honest. Dead Tech 3 Rex here is ridiculous. I think Xfactor's not even bothering really with Resbots anymore. Oh no, there are some. 10k metal just outside the front. Wraxell is desperately trying to get it. But there's so much splash damage here that it's pretty impossible for him to get any of this until the front line has moved past it. There's an attempt at a demon push here, but just look at the army difference. You know, we're talking 7 catapults, 13 Shivas, and some Crags versus, 7 Shivas. It's just not enough. The demon will not really be able to get anything of value here. Not enough to really write home about. This force here as well is going to be pretty unstoppable for Wraxell. It will just go around and kill everything. And that'll be all she wrote for Wraxell. And I know he hasn't called the GG just yet, but well, as I say that, he literally calls GG. Xfactor ending up on 14 fusions. Wraxell only on 4. And that just shows the scalability of economy and bar. If you don't scale, you die.
Battle ended.
Well, thank you all for watching this 1v1. Let me know your thoughts about the match in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.